and welcome. Today we have here bananas and we also have figs. Oh my, what a treat we are in for today. And I am so happy to have you here. Welcome to Elegantly Raw. Hi there. I am Doreet. Welcome. I am so happy to have you here today. We are using these beautiful, stunning, absolutely beautiful figs today. Yes, they are dried because right now that's what we have available are these dried figs. And then we're having these bananas. If you notice, they are not the Cavendish bananas. We will be doing a whole show on bananas at some point so you begin to understand the differences between all of these bananas. But right now, it is my pleasure to bring in the blender that we're going to be using today and show you how we're going to be using these. So I am not going to be using the actual figs the way they are dried. No. Instead, what we do is we have figs that are already soaked. They've been pre-soaked overnight. And if you look, you'll see that I did put a lot of water here. And the reason why there's so much water here, do you see that? In fact, if you look well, you can see that I have got a syrup now. Remember, we did a show once where I was showing you how to have alternative sweeteners and that you could use the syrup instead of sugar for anything that you're making. But today, what we did was we took the actual dried fig, this one, see what it looks like when it's dried here, and then we soaked it overnight. And look at the difference. When you soak it, you're really reconstituting it. So now we're going to be using these dried figs and also the syrup, and we're going to be putting it in the blender along with some bananas. So we're going to be actually using both the fresh bananas and some frozen bananas. So here are the frozen bananas that I'm going to be using today. This is a quick, easy recipe. And because I already soaked them, normally there are many ways you can do this. You can either put it into into orange juice. You can juice oranges before and then put them in there to soak overnight. And I like to do half orange juice, half water. But it's really up to you. So there are many different ways of doing this. So here are the frozen bananas. I'm going to put these in first. Now you'll need a powerful blender for this. If you do not have a powerful blender, look out, you're in trouble. So make sure it's a blender that's just a regular blender that you normally would purchase anywhere. And make sure it's one for really the Living Foods community. So here we have the figs all ready to go. It's a figgy pudding today. It's a figgy pudding day. So I'm putting these in now, and I'm going to actually change the camera so you can see what I'm doing, and you can participate as much as you wish to. So we're putting in the figs. The bananas are in already, and I'm putting in, how many figs am I putting in? It all depends on you. I would say start with like a cup of figs, and then if you see that that's not enough for you, you can put more in. I am putting in about 12 to 15 figs right now. I'm going to pour in a lot of, see, the moisture, because you need moisture in here to get this juicer to work and not destroy the machine. Otherwise, I would have to use a different top, which is the dry top. But of course, that's not what I'm looking for. Now, do you want this to be a real strong fig taste, or would you prefer it to be only a slightly so? Now, if you want this to be very, very moist, I happen to like my puddings liquid, or if you're making ice cream, you can also use this to make ice cream. You just put less liquid in there for the ice cream. Now I'm going to cover the blender. And while I am doing this, one of the things that I like to do So I didn't do the blender dance, but we might be able to have another opportunity to do that. I wanted to show you how quick that is. Do you see how easy this is? If you truly want to eat something that is extremely nutritious and healing, but at the same time, you think, I don't have time to do this stuff. I really cannot be expected to do this stuff. Look at this. And I do not like chocolate, but for those of you who like chocolate, it looks very chocolatey too. You could put carob in there. If you do chocolate, you could put chocolate in there as well. But I like to keep things simple. And so that's what we're doing today. We're keeping this very simple. And we're coming back to this in a few minutes to decorate it and to see what it looks like. But for now, I would like to actually bring in our lovely guest today from the Living Center, directly from Ontario, Canada. Lorenna is going to be actually taking us on our tour today of Ayurveda. Welcome, Lorenna. And please unmute yourself first. Thank you for being here.
Well, thank you very much for the invitation to be here today. And greetings from snowy London, Ontario in Canada to everyone. So I am thrilled to have this opportunity to share with you some of my thoughts of something that I've explored for the last 30 years through science and ancient wisdom teachings, through somatic body-centered practices, and my sheer love of the earth and food. Romanced by the elements, food, nature, and longevity. What does this mean? Well, food is such an intimate part of our lives, isn't it? Every day we are romanced by the enticing flavors and textures of food. Yet, what lays at the heart or the core of these delicate arrays of taste that allure us into such an intimate act of eating 3 times a day? The elements. I know this is really a no-brainer to all of you, but it's something that it seems that we don't think about a lot and perhaps even take for granted. Air, fire, the sun, water, earth, ether, also called space. The ancient wisdom teachings of Ayurveda from India tell us that each person is made up of these elements in varying proportions, which determines a person's constitution. One's constitution really affects every aspect of one's life, including what foods you're drawn to, how you think, your bone size, your whole appearance, your emotional capacity. For instance, a fire constitution, which in Ayurveda is referred to as Pitta, tends to think more rapidly. They're much more aggressive in both positive and can be in negative ways as well. Whereas someone who is what's called a water or Kapha constitution, they would think more slowly. It's just part of their nature. And they're usually a little more easygoing. So my husband, Chantry, who some of you may have heard last week on this show, he is more Kapha, more of the water constitution. And he used to drive me crazy because he would ponder things. I'm more fire. He would think about things for longer periods of time before whereas I was more quick to make decisions, until I understood that this is simply the way he works. And until he understood that it was simply the way I work. He's drawn to certain foods. I'm drawn to other foods. So trying to be exactly the same is something we've learned through Ayurveda doesn't work. And it's a beautiful science of life that I encourage everyone to dive a little, at least dip your toe into a little bit. It helps us to explain why some people are drawn to certain foods and cravings and others to different ones. It's partly to do with our upbringing, but it's also a very real biological factor. In essence, one can say that we are the elements. We are the elements in expression as you, the elements in expression as me, Lorenna. I love that. I love how the elements have woven themselves together in so many diverse ways, giving life to all the beauty and wonder on this planet. And when the elements are in balance, we thrive. When they're out of balance, that's the beginning of disease processes. Food was actually never a very important part of my life, except that I knew that if I wanted to fulfill my desires and my purpose, my dreams, that I needed to eat healthy food. So I did. Now, at the age of 71, I can see that eating healthy foods was a lot easier when I was younger. Going to a fast food place with my parents was a treat, not a normal everyday event. My digestive system has always been sensitive since I was a little girl, so I would try different kinds of foods and notice how they felt. Did they lift me up? Did they bring me down? Did they give me energies? Did they take away energy? It was all pretty straightforward, actually. If something didn't lift me up, or something did lift me up, was it consistent? Or did I feel a drop in my energy within a few hours, like with coffee or with chocolate, which I happen to really enjoy, but I'm very careful with? You know, our bodies are magnificent and wise. They will never guide us to foods that harm or deplete if we listen. Listen to what? Well, we are born with a felt knowing. By listening to the sensations in our bodies, which are activated by what we eat, by what we take in all around us, the ability to know what is good for us and what isn't is actually innate. Yet, we live in a culture that encourages us to eat foods that spice us up for a short period of time. They lack nutrients, are full of pesticides, or are overcooked, produced, full of hormones, etc., and essentially deplete life force. I mean, life force is what we are. Life force is the very foundation of all life. Dulling our systems with poor foods really does make it impossible to hear the messages from our body. That is until our body begins to scream with aches and pains and ultimately with disease. So as mentioned, food wasn't really a big deal to me. I ate to be healthy, and generally it was very satisfying. I kept it simple and easy. At around the age of 47, I was very healthy. I was strong. I was out dancing every day. I was eating well, but I knew that my food choices needed to change, more from a spiritual growth perspective than from physical health. But I didn't want to spend a lot of time in the kitchen. And I wasn't vegan at the time. And as far as I knew, being vegan meant spending a lot of time in the kitchen. And I had so many other things that I wanted to be doing, so much creativity to be done. And that wasn't going to be in the kitchen for me. And then I met my husband. We talked about this, and he introduced me to a concept that I surprisingly had never thought about. This was, I guess, about 23 years ago. He didn't speak about it being vegan. He didn't speak about it being plant-based. He spoke about it being raw. And my practical mind took about 2 minutes before I realized that, yes, this is what I want. I mean, I love salads. I love handling raw foods. I love handling fruits and vegetables. I always have. And I knew that in its pure form, these foods not only held all the nutrients and all of the vitamins and the minerals, but they also held the essential enzymes that every single part of my body needs to be healthy and strong. What I didn't realize was how delicious the food would be. And that's when I became interested in being in the kitchen. So much variety. And initially, of course, I did that. My live food journey began with all sorts of explorations of different kinds of foods and combinations and tastes. Lots of desserts, the yummy raw food desserts. And I can say that it was wonderful to explore. And I'm still a very high raw diet, which serves me well. And I keep it simple, healthy, and I love it. So as my body cleansed through the raw food diet, I found myself wanting to understand these forces that were at the heart of food, the heart of all life, both from an Ayurvedic perspective and also from my indigenous traditions. I am of the Métis Nation here in Canada. I wanted to understand each element as a unique expression of who I am, as a unique expression of the earth. For me, they're the clearest, the most beautiful expressions of spirit here in this planet. I mean, where do we go when we need nourishment? Where do we go to relax? We go where there's water. We go to the forests. We eat foods that make us feel, they don't not nourish our emotional body, they nourish our physical bodies. The elements have woven themselves together to create humans, cats, alligators, octopus, redwood trees, rivers, bacteria, fungi, everything. Every form of life that exists is born out of the intelligent weaving of these sacred elements. And they give of themselves so freely, don't they? We could all say that in truth, we are solar beings, awakened and brought into life by the sun, with the same radiant qualities of warmth and nurturance that the sun offers each of us. We are the power of each of the elements. The elements give life, and they also destroy life as well, a necessary part of the evolutionary process. Because we are made of these powers, we can support life through our choices, through our actions, or we can destroy it. There is, as I said, an intelligence in each element that enters us through our breath, through the sun, what we drink, through our food, and it becomes us. The cleaner the food, the greater the intelligence. When we listen to our bodies, we will know exactly the foods that our bodies need to cultivate radiant health and longevity, to live the quality of life that we all long for, regardless of the stage of life that you're in, young, old, and everything in between. This requires a clean and open organism. Regular cleansing is a great idea. The raw food approach naturally supports that. Nourishment through our food. But we are nourished in so many other ways, aren't we? I already mentioned breath, oxygen, our number one nutrient. Breath work activates our oxygen intake. Through my many years of being both student and teacher, I have grown a process called Shamanu Earth Wisdom Teachings, which offers a diversity of somatic practices and philosophies and practical experiences that help us to reconnect with each of the elements, to understand their nature so that we can understand our nature. This has opened doors in consciousness that I hadn't expected. Realizations of our complete and utter interconnectedness with all of life, and a relationship with the other than human world that is both precious and so deeply nourishing. The elements are everything and offer us nourishment in as diverse a way as there is life on earth. The beauty and wonder of this world is stunning. We are truly given everything to thrive, aren't we? So naturally, it's important that we take care of the earth, meaning each element, our oceans, our rivers, our forests, the air, and how we use fire. We as a species are only starting to realize the importance of this. No elements, no life, including human life. It's insane what we've been doing to the very forces that give us life. But I truly feel that this is changing. And shows like this are an example of how we are becoming more conscious of our responsibility as really earth stewards. In my shamanu programs and mentorships, we spend as much time as we can out in nature, on the land, doing our practices, opening portals to the truth of our interbeing, our oneness with life. I actually speak very little about food because that's not the focus of the program. Yet, inevitably, every single person who moves through the mentorships changes their diet, changes how they walk, how they can walk more lightly on the planet. Why? Because they fall in love with nature. They can feel the depth of nourishment and joy, and sometimes even a sadness to have forgotten for so many years how everything we need is right here, all around us, how we are so loved by the earth. The elements are always romancing us, wooing us back into harmony with nature and with ourselves, helping us to remember who we are and why we're here. This remembrance is so very important now. I don't feel, can pretend that we're going to be going back to business as usual. COVID or no COVID. We've pretty much backed ourselves into a corner, and we need to clear our minds, our bodies, and our hearts to meet the challenges. But not only the challenges that are presenting themselves to all of us around the world, but also seize the opportunities that lay before us to create a more beautiful and peaceful and a world of wonder, a world that we can hand to our children and be proud of. This can happen, and it's all a matter of choice. What and how we choose to eat, for instance, is critical to the health of ourselves and to the health of the planet. Large-scale food production, as many of you already know, is largely to grow food for animals so that we can eat them. This is not necessary, and it's dangerous. The plant-based diet decreases deforestation, water pollution, air pollution, greenhouse gases, not to forget the extreme cruelty to so many different animals. And it gives us all the nutrients that we need to survive, to thrive, to be happy and healthy and present to our world. It may be difficult for some people to go 100% plant-based, but even if you were to bring in more plant-based meals, this would reduce the harm that is happening on the planet, the deforestation, the harms to our bodies from eating toxic foods. It's hard, it's very hard to see the next step in our lives when our bodies are fed with, full of stimulants or chemicals or pollutants. We live in a culture that's addicted to the highs and lows. And there are so many addictions of choice out there right now. That is something that easily is eliminated when we clean our bodies up and feel happy and content because we're healthier. As I mentioned, we need strong fluid bodies, clear minds and hearts to make it through what one of our cherished teachers, Joanna Macy, calls the great turning. If you feel afraid of the future, either in your personal life or globally, and there are so many people that have lost their jobs, that are concerned about being able to put healthy meals on the table. If you feel low in creativity and vitality, including sexual vitality, which seems to be rather epidemic now, especially in North America. At least I know that in North America. If your emotions are like yo-yos and your mind is dull, change your diet. Find regular practices that draw you into relationship with nature and be with nature regularly. It's time, I feel, and I am passionate about this. This is why I've given my life to it, to listen to the great wisdom teachers, the greatest creators and givers of life, the ones who surround us with beauty, nourishment, and delight, air, fire, water, earth, and ether. It's time to return to this great love affair with them. They're waiting. It's all here. It's never not been here. We are born of them, designed to be in connection and communication with them at all times, to be connection and communication and in communication with the earth of our bodies. And isn't it wonderful that this connection can happen in such delicious and nourishing ways? So it's a pleasure to share these thoughts with you. Thank you for taking this time to be together in this way. And I believe there may be a little bit of time afterwards for some conversation and perhaps a question or two. So thank you.
Thank you, Lorenna. When I started the show, one of the first people that I thought needs to be on here was Lorenna last year. So what you see, and I'm coming back to Lorenna in a moment, what you see here is I've taken the fig banana pudding, I've put it in the glass, and actually I added some other elements to it, some other goodies to it. And I'm going to show you exactly what I did to finish it off. So I did use some raspberries. So I like to also, in addition to all the elements, I like to use the rainbow when I eat. And these are mulberries. This is actually one of my favorite fruit. These are dried mulberries in the summer, of course. I have them when I can find them at the farmer's market, and they go so fast. I have them fresh. And then these are goji berries, which I really highly recommend. So what I'm going to do now is not just put this in, but I'm going to put in a little bit of coconut, just because I'm a coconut fiend. And I've got some dehydrated here and in flakes. So I'm going to put this over it. And then we're going to go to the comments and to some questions if we have time for that. But I just wanted to show you here what this looks like right now. This is our figgy pudding. So if you think that being simple in your diet, using only two ingredients, and then sprinkling a few more on top, is going to mean that you will not eat as well as you did when you were eating only cooked foods and only foods with animals, you're in for a treat, because this is going to totally woo and romance you to do the very opposite. So I would like to actually go into the comments. There's so many of them, by the way. First of all, hello, Tom. Hello, Miriam. And
Doreet, you've muted yourself.
yeah, thank you so much. So hello, Carol. Thank you. Carol, nice to have you here. And I see David Alex from London, and it's not London, Ontario, but London, England, has quite a few comments here. And so does Tom and Carol and Miriam. And we've got quite a few comments, so we'll go through them. Maddie is also here. We'll go through them a little bit one by one, but there's so many of them. We probably won't have time to go through all of them today, but could you just quickly tell us before I read these, Lorenna, what has Ayurveda done for you that you would not have done otherwise?
It's given me a way of understanding the elements that is beyond it's given me the science of the elements. A huge part of what I do is at an intuitive level, in reconnecting with the sources of life, the elements. And what Ayurveda has done is it's given me, as I said, the science. And it's helped me to understand myself better. It's helped me to understand my husband, my son. It's helped me to understand the world in a different way. And it's brought the elements alive. I mean, these are teachings from 5,000 plus years ago. These are people, the ancient Rishi masters, who studied nature to understand themselves. And that's what Ayurveda gives us. And there's other traditions as well. The Taoist traditions do this as well. The indigenous traditions do this as well. Many ancient traditions offer this, but I particularly am drawn to Ayurveda.
And we want to actually commend you on that, because there are quite a few people, like David Alex is saying that it definitely works for you because you look really good. And we have some other comments from Tom. Tom, this is a banana. As in bananas, yes. As in BANANAS, yes. So Tom says vegan, eat figs and not pigs. That's very funny, Tom. Let's see. Carol, blender dance. Sorry, Carol, there was no blender dance today. I know. I was trying to rush through this so I could bring on Lorenna, because there's so much. I wanted to give her as much time as possible. And Tom is saying maybe Lorenna can do the blender dance next time. Yeah, when we don't do the blender dance, it is an issue. And Tom is saying, yes, I'm a pitta. He's a pitta as well. And I don't know if two pittas would have a quiet, peaceful marriage. Well, now you know.
I can make a comment to that. You know, we're born of all the elements in different ratios. And so it's not that two pittas can't live together. It's understanding our nature. And this is, Ayurveda gives us so many tools for this. And it also gives us tools for understanding what kind of foods are best for us as well. But really, there's many other ways that are necessary to reconnect with the heart and soul of ourselves. I mean, no two pittas are the same. There's no snowflakes that are the same. Life does not make people the same, regardless of your pitta, vata, kapha. So it's understanding the uniqueness of each individual. And we can thrive regardless of our constitutional makeups together. We have to learn how to thrive together.
And I was actually trained at the Chopra Center to be a Chopra Center educator in Ayurveda and meditation and yoga. And I was trained by Dr. Deepak Chopra, Dr. David Simon, and Roger Gabriel. And what we teach there is that we're all the doshas, we're all the constitutions. It's just that we have one that's predominant. And so the whole gift of food and of being in nature is to actually create a balance between all the three constitutions and create harmony. And that's the whole purpose of studying and shows like this, is to teach how to create the balance, because that's what usually is missing in our lives. So it's not like you will be forever a pitta unless you decide to be or unless you want to augment that even more. And some people, their lifestyles does exactly do that, which takes them out of balance, tremendously out of balance, which is what Lorenna was inferring when she was talking about illness and disease. It's showing that, or, we have gone out of balance and we're no longer in harmony. And so the idea is to really find a way to create harmony between all three of them. So I'm going to have to wrap up because unfortunately we are running over time, but I did want to bring in and speak about the fact that tomorrow I am actually launching tomorrow a new show, a different show, not that I'm giving this one up because Elegantly Raw will always be here, but we're doing the Climate Healers food show starting tomorrow. I'm launching it tomorrow with Dr. Salish Rao at 12 noon Pacific Standard Time. Lorenna and also Chantry will definitely be on there because this is exactly right up their alley. And what I'm going to be doing is connecting the dots between the soil, what underneath the soil and what comes up above the soil, what we have on our table, what we do with it, how we got it, how it got to us, and then the landfill. So I'm connecting the dots between all of these and how the climate experiences that we're experiencing is simply a mirror of our own lives. If we want more climatic chaos, chaos in the climate chaos, we need to augment the chaos in our lives. If we heal our lives and we want a healing planet, we must work on healing our lives first, because the climate mirrors us. The climate mirrors, it's all about energy. And that is what I'm going to be teaching, is how our energy impacts the energy of everything else on Earth. And that we're not here to blame winter or blame summer or blame an eruption or an earthquake for what happens. We are totally responsible for the way we live our lives, and how we live our lives is connected to the entire environment internally and externally, and is extremely dependent on us. So that's what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to be specifically looking at how food and truly mirrors this in so many different ways, not just the way we eat and not eat, but how we think about food and the difference it makes. And so you will be seeing Lorenna on there for sure. That show will not be live tomorrow. It's live because it's the launch at 12 noon. And Dr. Salis Rao will be on there. And he was the executive producer of Cowspiracy, the movie, if you've seen that one, and also of What the Health, if you've seen that. He is also the executive producer of that. And this is his website, climatehealers.org. I'll be doing the show for that, for the climatehealers.org. The Climate Healers Food Show will be on his Facebook page, his YouTube page, and on his Twitter. And so I look forward to seeing you all there. Please join us for the live launch tomorrow. But then after that, everything will be recorded. This way, I can have people from all over the world join in. I'm going to be going to permaculture farms in Costa Rica. I'm going to be going to intentionally live food communities in South America. I'm going, and probably a few others in the world as well. So it's going to be very different from this show, but please still watch the show because we are still going to be elegantly raw here. And I so look forward to seeing you all. Lorenna, any last word to wrap up?
Oh, well, yes. I would like to give thanks. I'd like to give thanks to you. I'd like to give thanks to all of you for being interested in this. And mostly I'd like to give thanks to the elements that give us life. And I have experienced, I believe, from this experience, that one of the greatest nutrients that we can give ourselves is gratitude. So let's not forget what gives to us so freely, that what loves us so freely. And our expression of gratitude awakens the great wisdom and intelligence that lives in us from each of the elements. So I give thanks to life.
And yes, and to you, I give thanks as well, Lorenna, because I do know that you really personify so much of what I teach and so much of what I live. And it's almost sometimes listening to Lorenna speak, it's like listening to my twin. So, there's a sacredness of being, which we've all forgotten, a sacredness of being to which we all need to return. And I think once we do this, we're going to be very surprised to see how much our lives really take off and how much all the things that we thought we could never heal or we could never forget about or we would be stuck in, all of a sudden they melt away, just melt away. And here comes all of the elements to celebrate us. Here comes people in our lives that we never thought would ever exist, much less that would enter our lives to assist to pull us up to the higher vibrational energy that we now have become. Because if we want to attract, like attracts like, and if you want to attract something into your life, become the vibrational energy of that. And I think Ayurveda helps very much to teach us how to do that. And so to your health, Lorenna, to Chantry, to the Living Center in Ontario, Canada, you've done so much incredible work up there. And I suggest that people go on the website and look it up. And then when we are traveling again, that maybe you take a trip up there and get to experience the living, what they teach there. So until next week, everyone, and for those of you who can watch tomorrow at 12 noon live, please do. And in the comments below, I will have the links to where you can find us tomorrow. I'm sorry we didn't have time for all the comments, David. I'm glad that you came home from work in London and were able to join us in time. Miriam, Carol, everyone who has been here today. Thank you all. And until next week, when we have another episode of Elegantly Raw, this is Doreet saying, thank you, be bold, be brave, be mindful, and remember that the universe does not exist without you. It is because of you that everything exists. So thank you for showing up for yourself and for us today.